Yo, what is good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson, and I am your host. And if you've been sticking tuned to the podcast, it might look a little different. I got a new camera. We got the Sony ZV-E10. What's it called? The Sony ZV-E10. So there's different versions of it. I don't even know which one I have. I don't know if it's the one or the two, but it's looking pretty clean, right? So maybe we'll fine tune it as we go along. But if you are listening to audio only and you do want to see the new look, head over to my YouTube, Fantasy Football Prodigy. This is episode 48 of the podcast here, where we're thriving. We're at 199 subs on YouTube. So shout out for, all the subs recently. We're at 199. So if you aren't subbed yet, make sure you head over and you can be number 200. But if you prefer the audio only, I absolutely get that. Just make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the pod so you can become a fantasy football prodigy. In this episode, we're going to be previewing week 6. We're going to do a quick recap of that crazy Thursday night football game between the Eagles and the Giants. And then most importantly, I'm going to hit you with my starts of the week. So should we start with the Thursday night game really quick? So I am recording this on, technically it is Saturday, October 11th. It's literally like 12:15 a.m. So it just turned Saturday. So it's going to be probably Saturday morning by the time you're hearing this. So we had the Thursday night game already happen this week. The New York Giants at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. They get the surprising win, and it was a big one, 34-17. The Giants are now 2-4. The Eagles are 4-2, having lost 2 in a row. They just lost to the Denver Broncos the week before. And this game was really all about Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo. Obviously, no Malik Neighbors for the Giants, and no Darius Slayton either at wide receiver. And that it didn't matter. I mean, Jackson Dart was 17 of 25, 195 and a touchdown through the air, but he also added 13 for 58 and a touchdown on the ground. And then speaking of that ground game, Cam Skattebo had 19 for 98 and 3 touchdowns on the ground. I almost benched him for Michael Carter in a guillotine league that I'm in. And while Michael Carter hasn't played yet, I think it's safe to say that playing Cam Skattebo was the right decision there. So glad I did that. Leading receiver was Wan'Dale Robinson, 6 for 84 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Lil Jordan Humphrey got involved, 4 for 55. Theo Johnson, after a couple touchdowns last week, came back down to earth, 2 for 27. Jalen Hyatt, 3 for 17 on 5 targets. Who remembers him? Kind of a bust, but good to see him get involved. And Russell Wilson did come in for one play, and he came in for a few plays. He threw one pass. It was incomplete. It looked pretty ugly, but Jackson Dart left with an injury for a little bit, and he came back. But it was a funny scene where like the coaching staff was like, "Come on, get him back in the game." Cam Skattebo went in the tent with Dart, and I don't know, man. I'm sure you guys have heard, but Cam Skattebo might be the most likable, funny, enjoyable player to watch in the NFL right now. The dude is just the walking embodiment of CTE right now, and he's just a dog. He's an absolute dog. It's like 2 frat dudes out there just balling, and they got it done. So on the other side, the Eagles offense has looked a little like not great. They didn't score in the second half here. Jalen Hurts was 24 of 33, 283, a touchdown and a pick. He missed some throws. The main one that stands out is a huge, like, long bomb touchdown to Devontae Smith that he just missed. As he does, he did add 7 for 13 and a touchdown on the ground to save his day. So he was all right for fantasy. But the offense is definitely struggling. Saquon was 12 for 58 on the ground. Only 2 for 9 through the air, no scores. So the revenge game didn't really, go the way he wanted there. And, he hasn't, the offense as a whole has been struggling. Saquon hasn't really been, putting up monster numbers like he did last year. I think I heard a stat that he was on pace for less than 1,000 rushing yards. So, the whole analytical standpoint of coming off of that big workload that he had last year and it translating to him having a down year this year. So far, that appears to be true, unfortunately. but you're obviously going to start him every week still. Like, he's still solid for fantasy and he has scoring opportunities, but he might not be the, number one overall running back like he was last year, where he's just dominating. And, he basically should have broke the all-time rushing record last year had he played that, played that last game and tried to get it. But on the bright side here, AJ Brown was 6 for 80, 9 targets. So that's really good for AJ Brown these days. He's been kind of a disappointment this season and he was involved, so you like that. Devontae Smith only 4 for 49 on 5 targets. And then Dallas Goedert 9 for 110 and 1 touchdown. He saw 11 targets in this game. It's good for Dallas Goedert, but it's not good for this offense, if that makes sense. Like, you have all these talented players and Dallas Goedert is the one who is seemingly scoring all these points. He's currently in half PPR, the tight end 7 on the season, tight end 4 in points per game from weeks 1 to 5. That's not even counting week 6 because no one else has played yet. So it makes sense because I traded him in Dynasty in the offseason, so that totally makes sense that he, would be balling out now finally. So yeah, we'll move on from that game. The Giants fans should be excited. I know Malik Neighbors is out for the season, but once he's healthy and back, that as long as Jackson Dart and Cam Scatteraboo kind of, keep it up and they don't kind of just crumble suddenly. It's a very small sample size. Like, people are acting like they're, Pro Bowlers already. So let's take it, one game at a time here, but Giants fans should be excited right now. So, let's do our starts of the week, ladies and gentlemen. This is the best part of the show. Make sure you are buckled in. I'm going to go position by position and hit you with my start of the week. I might have more than one for a certain position, and we'll get into that in a second here. But these are guys that, I like. Either I think they have a ton of upside and can win you a week, or it's a player that maybe, is kind of being slept on and I want to highlight as someone that maybe should get more attention. Or, it's someone that basically it's someone I think is a good start compared to their average. I'm not going to tell you to start someone like, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are too obvious of starts. So, for example, I'll hit you with my quarterback start of the week here. And this is a guy that I wasn't really interested in heading into the season, but he's been balling out. So we'll start with the quarterback position here. Quarterback start of the week, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Matthew Stafford has been great for fantasy so far in 2025. He is the quarterback 9 in points per game heading into week 6. And over the last 2 weeks, he is the quarterback 4 overall, scoring over 25 points in each of those games. Now he gets to take on a Ravens defense that is decimated by injuries and has given up the second most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks on the season. Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud has not been putting up big fantasy numbers at all this season, but last week against this Ravens defense, he put up a 4 touchdown performance and finished as the quarterback 1 overall on the week. Stafford and his top wide receivers, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, should eat in this matchup, and I like Stafford as a low quarterback 1, high quarterback 2 in week 6. Moving on to the running back position, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is where I have a couple people I want to highlight. So we'll start with my first guy. Running back start of the week, Bill Jacory Croskey-Merritt of the Washington Commanders at home against the Chicago Bears. Bill finally had his big breakout game in week 5 against the Chargers, finishing as the running back 5 on the week with 14 for 111 and 2 touchdowns on the ground and 2 for 39 through the air. Let me say that one more time. Sorry. I'm going to put this in a TikTok, so don't mind me. Bill finally had his breakout game in week 5 against the Chargers, finishing as the running back 5 on the week with 14 for 111 and 2 touchdowns on the ground and 2 for 39 through the air. Okay, so that's a little behind the scenes for you loyal podcast listeners. Anyways, moving on. He has been incredibly efficient this season, averaging 6.6 yards per carry, and he should be the lead back for the Commanders moving forward. This week, he gets to take on the Chicago Bears, who are giving up the 4th most fantasy points per game to running backs on the season. This Monday Night Football matchup has a juicy 49.5 point over-under, and the Commanders are 4.5 point home favorites. So we could get a high-scoring game and a good game script for the Commanders running game if things break right. I'm interested to see if he gets even more volume this week and as the season goes along. But as things stand currently, I like Bill as a mid running back 2 in week 6. And then, like I said, I have another running back start of the week for you guys. And that is going to be, well, I got to do my little cadence for the clip here. So running back start of the week, Rico Dowdle of the Carolina Panthers at home against the Dallas Cowboys. The revenge game is here. I think Rico is going to eat. I highlighted Rico Dowdle on the Fantasy Football Prodigy podcast last week, and the guy went out and put up a running back 1 overall finish against the Miami Dolphins. He dominated, filling in for an injured Chuba Hubbard with over 30 fantasy points, going 23 for 206 and a touchdown on the ground, and 3 for 28 through the air. Hubbard is out again this week, and while I don't expect Rico to rush for over 200 yards again, I think he can dominate against a Dallas Cowboys defense that has allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs on the season. This game has an awesome 49.5 point over-under, and as long as the Cowboys don't pull away early, Dowdle should see plenty of volume and put up fantasy points. I like Rico Dowdle as a high running back 2 in week 6. Moving on here to the wide receiver position. In that same game, wide receiver start of the week, Tetairoa McMillan of the Carolina Panthers at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Tet passes the eye test, but he has been a bit disappointing for fantasy so far, and he is the wide receiver 32 in points per game heading into week 6. A big part of that low ranking is the fact that he hasn't scored a single touchdown yet, but I think there's a good chance he gets his first score this week. He gets to take on a Dallas Cowboys defense that has allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the breakout game that we've been waiting for. This game has a 49.5 point over-under, and the Cowboys offense has been rolling, so the Panthers offense will need to keep their foot on the gas if Dallas puts up a lot of points. I'd love for Tet to be getting better quarterback play, but I think even the Panthers passing game can overcome this Dallas defense. I like Tet McMillan as a high wide receiver 2 in week 6. And then finally, we got the tight end position here, ladies and gentlemen. Tight end start of the week, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. To start the season, it was looking like Tucker Kraft might have been the steal of the draft at tight end after putting up 6 for 124 and a touchdown in week 2. He slowed down a bit after that performance, but it appears like at least some of that might have been health related. Fresh off their bye week, Kraft is off the injury report now, and he has a juicy matchup with the Bengals. The Packers are 14.5 point favorites, which is just insane, and they will likely be able to score and win this game however they want. This very well could be a Josh Jacobs game, or we could see one of the Packers wide receivers put up a big performance here. But the Bengals are giving up the most fantasy points to tight ends on the season, and I like the odds of Tucker Kraft having a big game. He's a good bet to have a solid performance here, but he is also one of the few tight ends in the league who has that week winning big play upside. And in this matchup, I like Tucker Kraft as a high tight end 1 in week 6. All right, those are my starts of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Comment down below what you think and make sure you abide by those. We've been pretty solid this year, you know. I made Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson starts of the week last week, and that was looking pretty rough until garbage time, but you know, it worked out. We highlighted David Montgomery last week, and he was awesome. And then Darren Waller, who was great. So all of our starts of the week hit. I also included a little segment where I kind of highlighted Rico Dowdle, Rashad White, Michael Carter, a little bit of Amari DiMarcado, and Dowdle obviously was running back 1 on the week. Rashad White was very good. What I remember, how did he finish? Let's see. He was running back 7, and then Carter was the running back 11. So all 3 of those guys were running back 1s. DiMarcado, not so much. And I did talk about Sean Tucker, but I even said he's a deep play only, and he didn't really do much. So we've been pretty solid with those so far this year. So all right, I think we're ready to move on to kind of the week 6 preview here. I'm going to try to go kind of fast and get through these, just because I don't want to I don't want to spend too much time kind of discussing each of these matchups. So we're going to start with the New York Jets and the Denver Broncos here. This game is in London. The Jets are 0-5 and the Broncos are 3-2. So right now the Broncos are 7.5 point favorites. Over under is 43.5. You can start Justin Fields in this game. I don't necessarily want to, but with his mobility, he's always someone you can start. The Broncos are giving up the second fewest points per game to quarterbacks, so he's not someone that I'm really wanting to start necessarily, but just with his mobility, he's always someone that you can put out there. He's more of a quarterback 2 this week. But Breece Hall, you're probably starting him. The Broncos, in terms of running back points per game, they're kind of middle of the pack to a tougher matchup. They're 22nd most, so you're starting Breece Hall no matter what. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Broncos defense kind of gives him fits a little bit, but he's still in that low running back 1, high running back 2 range with his usage and with the Braylon Allen injury. So he's the only guy really getting touches there. And then Garrett Wilson, again, it's a tough matchup with Patrick Surtain here. But Garrett Wilson is still a guy that you're starting pretty much every week here. Maybe limit your expectations a little bit, but yeah, those are pretty much the only guys I'm starting on the Jets. Mason Taylor at tight end is someone you can start in a pinch. He's seeing a good amount of volume the last couple weeks. So last week he was 9 for 67 on 12 targets. The week before that, 5 for 65 on 7 targets. And the week before that, he was only 4 for 18, but he saw 6 targets. So his targets from week 1 have been 1, 2, 6, 7, 12. I don't know if he's going to get more than 12, but he's looking like the number 2 pass catcher in this offense, which is kind of what we were hoping for heading into the season with no real other wide receiver there. Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, Al Lazard, those are not the answer there. So, yeah, but it's pretty much Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson are the only locks. You can start Fields if you don't have a better option. And then Mason Taylor is kind of like a tight end 2 streaming option. And then looking at the Denver Broncos here, Bo Nix, that is a guy that, he's been weird. He's been weird. If you have him, I think he's a good start. The Jets defense is not good. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire like I think maybe we were hoping after a great rookie year, but he's been really solid. The Jets are giving up the 10th most points to quarterbacks. Dak Prescott just lit him up. So I think Bo Nix is a really solid start this week at quarterback. He's in that low quarterback 1 range. It's kind of a tough decision between him and guys like, Danny Dimes, Jordan Love. I'd play him over Stafford probably, who's my start of the week. I'd play him over Fields in the same matchup. Daniel Jones and Jordan Love, that's tough. The thing with Jordan Love is he might not need to do much. So, but yeah, Bo Nix is a solid start. J.K. Dobbins, he's been really good for fantasy. I know everyone wants R.J. Harvey to kind of be the guy there. And Harvey is still someone I'm not dropping in fantasy, but I'm not playing Harvey until I see him get more work. J.K. Dobbins is a solid running back 2 in this matchup. So if you have him, you're probably playing him. If you picked up a guy like Rico Dowdle or Rashad White, then that's a situation where, okay, maybe you consider those other guys to slot in. But even then, the Jets are giving up the 9th most points per game to running backs on the season. So it's a good matchup. The Jets are kind of middle of the pack against wide receivers. I think you're still probably starting Cortland Sutton in most cases here. Obviously, Sauce Gardner is there and he's a talented defensive back, but Cortland Sutton is still in that wide receiver 2 range. He's just been really solid for fantasy outside of that weird week 2 game where he went 1 for 6. He's going to be a solid start. Like, maybe his ceiling isn't the highest, but he's a solid start, and I'm not looking to start Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims at this point. If I did have to pick someone, it would be Troy Franklin, but I'm not excited to play those guys. So it's pretty much Bo Nix, J.K. Dobbins, and Cortland Sutton. So that game's not too complicated. Let's move on to the next matchup here. We got the LA Rams traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. So this game, let's see here. Rams are 3-2. Ravens are 1-4. The Rams are 7-point road favorites. Over under is 44.5. Insane to think about. But yeah, the Ravens are 1-4. They're struggling. It's looking rough for them. Lamar Jackson is going to be out for this game, so it's going to be Cooper Rush starting for the Ravens. Derrick Henry, it's been rough for him. He's someone you want when the team is winning. He's really good when the Ravens are winning, playing good defense, and he can kind of run the ball to ice the game. And they have not been winning. They're 1-4, so he's still playable. He's more of a running back 2 at this point, though. To be honest, like, he's been really disappointing, and it's not a good matchup. The Rams are giving up the 2nd fewest points per game to running backs. So, you can start like Rico Dowdle. I mentioned him. I would start Rico over Derrick Henry, which is crazy to say, but Rashad White, kind of similar thing where it's like, you could, that's a tough call, but it's a decision. And then the only other real decision here, other than Derrick Henry, don't just auto bench him. Like, if you don't have a good option, like, he still scored last week. And he's Derrick Henry, so he could always rip off a big run here, but he's more in that running back 2 range. And then the only other guy that you're maybe considering starting is Zay Flowers. He's currently questionable as of this recording. He's been limited all week due to a shoulder injury. I'm not looking to play him even if he's active. He's still in that, like, low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 range. But he's not a must start. So no must starts on the Ravens side of things without Lamar Jackson. I'm not starting Bateman or Hopkins. Mark Andrews is, he's a guy. I'm at this point, I'm not really looking to start him. He's had 1 good game this season. He did have a game 2 weeks ago. He had 8 targets and 7 receptions that only went for 30 yards. But week 3 against Detroit, he was 6 for 91 and 2 touchdowns. Every other week, he's been like low single digits. So not really looking to start anyone other than maybe Derrick Henry and maybe Zay Flowers, but you might have better options. And then on the Rams side of things, I talked about Stafford. I like him this week. He's been solid. He's a really good streaming option. Start of the week for me. Kyren Williams is a great start each and every week, but you might think that the Ravens defense is good. They're playing the Ravens. Kyren Williams is going to get stuffed. No, the Ravens are giving up the 2nd most points to running backs. So they're giving it up through the air and on the ground. So Kyren is a great start as always. And then Puka Nacua, he might literally wreck. He might ruin the Ravens franchise with this performance. He's probably the number 1 receiver on the week rankings wise, and it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes there. And then Devontae Adams, his teammate, is also a great play this week in this matchup. Both are must starts, which is why I like Stafford so much. I think they're both good touchdown bets. Obviously Kyren Williams might run him in, but they're both awesome. So Stafford, Kyren, Puka, Adams, log out, no tight ends there. So they make that easy. It's always nice when they make it easy for you there. So moving on here, we're going to go, let's take a look at the Seahawks and the Jacksonville Jags. So this should be an exciting game here. The Seahawks are 3-2 and the Jaguars are 4-1. They just beat the Chiefs in that crazy primetime game where, wow, that game was a roller coaster with Trevor Lawrence, but they somehow got it done. And both of these teams are, they're looking really solid. It should be a close game. The Seahawks are 1.5 point road favorites, 47.5 point over under. I'd probably lean Seattle here, but should be a close game. On the Seattle side of things, Sam Darnold has been playing really well, and he is in that conversation for, someone you can stream in the right matchup, and he's been playing really well. So Jacksonville is giving up the 12th most points per game to quarterbacks. Darnold is someone you can start. You probably don't have to. I'd rather go with that Jordan Love, Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Stafford tier that I talked about. If you want to go for like upside, you could put Justin Fields out there with his mobility. And like same thing with Jared Goff. He's always kind of like hit or miss. Like he's probably more likely to have a big game, whereas Darnold is probably more likely to give you like more of a solid performance there. At running back, Kenneth Walker is the running back you probably want there. He's been a little bit disappointing for fantasy so far. He's been okay. Week 1 was very troublesome, and he's been much better since then, obviously. And looking at his stats, like he's been pretty good, but not the huge year we were hoping for. Jacksonville's like middle of the pack against running back. So if you have him, you're probably starting him as a running back too. But with some of these guys emerging, like Rico, like Judkins, Rashad White, ETN, Bill Croskey-Merritt, if you drafted Dobbins late, if you had Scadaboo, hopefully you played him. Like those are all guys that you could probably play over Kenneth Walker at this point. But it's close. And then, yeah, I'm not looking to play Charbonnet, but hold on to him as a handcuff. And then in the receiver game, it's JSN. It's JSN, baby. Like, you play him each and every week. He's seeing a lot of the team's targets. The team isn't necessarily throwing the ball a ton, but he's been just absolute money for fantasy. So not looking to start Cooper Kupp or Torrey Horton in this game. So if you want to take a tight end streaming flyer type of guy, that would be AJ Barner. He's been a little bit touchdown dependent, but he's been a top 10 tight end in 3 out of 5 weeks. One of those was 2 for 26 and a touchdown. The other one was 3 for 32 and a touchdown. So all touchdowns. And then last week, it was 7 for 53 and 2 touchdowns. So he had 7 targets. You like that. You like the 53 yards, and the 2 touchdowns is a bonus. And, I'm probably more so looking to hold him at this point, but he is someone that, in deeper leagues, or if you're really desperate, you can play him. And then on Jacksonville, I'm not looking to play Trevor Lawrence at this point. I'd go Darnold over Lawrence. But Travis Etienne is a good start. He's looking like, a really, really solid start pretty much every week, regardless of the matchup. Seattle's kind of middle of the pack against running backs. But Etienne is someone that he's pretty much at least a running back 2 each and every week. Like I'd play him over Derrick Henry, for example. And then the only other guy I'm really considering starting here would be Brian Thomas Jr. He's been really disappointing. I drafted him over Jonathan Taylor in my main league, and I'm so upset about that because he quote unquote fell to me. But I actually won my matchup that in that same league on that like late pass up the sideline to him from Trevor Lawrence. That was crazy. So I won on that play. So that was insane. I was also going against ETN in that game, and whew, that was a sweaty one, but we got her done. Brian Thomas Jr., though, he's still in the wide receiver 2 range. It just sucks. He's not, I don't know, man. It's just not working out really, but I'm still probably starting him in most cases as a wide receiver 2. Travis Hunter, I'm still not looking to play him. You know, last week he was 3 for 64 on 3 targets. Week before, 3 for 42 on 5 targets. He's not getting, you know, he's not getting as much usage as you would hope. He's made a play here and there, but for consistent fantasy production, you know, he's borderline droppable at this point, you know, so not someone I'm looking to start. So yeah, that should be a great game though. Like just very like NFL wise, that should be awesome. And then Brenton Strange for Jacksonville is out on injured reserve, so not really looking to pivot to any of those other tight end options there. We'll move on to another game here. We got the Arizona Cardinals at the Indianapolis Colts. The Cardinals are 2-3. The Colts are 4-1. This game, let's see. Colts are 7-point home favorites, 47.5 point over under. I forgot to say too at the top here, bye weeks. We have 2 more bye weeks, by the way. Houston Texans and Minnesota Vikings. So sorry, I forgot to say that at the top, but 47.5 point over under. I think the Colts are going to dominate this game at home. Jonathan Taylor has been arguably the best pick in fantasy. If you're redrafting today, he might go first overall. You know, it's him, Puka, Christian McCaffrey probably are the top 3 in no particular order. So Jonathan Taylor is a must start, obviously. Daniel Jones, you can start him against the Cardinals. He's been pretty solid. You know, NFL wise, he's been great. Like for this offense, the Colts needed someone that can keep them on schedule and make plays, and he can run the ball, and he's been really good. So he's in play. The Cardinals are giving up the 5th fewest points to quarterbacks. And I could definitely see this being a game where they just kind of run the ball all over, but Daniel Jones is still in that low quarterback 1 range. And then at wide receiver, the guy that I would be looking to start is Michael Pittman. He's in that wide receiver 2 spot. He's been pretty consistently solid for fantasy. He scored each of the last 3 weeks, which has kind of boosted his numbers, but you know, it's the Cardinals are middle of the pack against wide receivers, and Pittman has been really solid. So he might not have a ton of upside, but he is definitely kind of in that category where he's going to be a solid start pretty much every week. Last I saw, sorry, let me finish with the Colts side of things here before I move on. Let's see. Tyler Warren at tight end. He's basically a must start at this point, unless you somehow drafted another like premier tight end, but he pretty much is like, other than like maybe McBride, Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft. You know, I'd probably go Warren over Kraft. That's really close. But yeah, if you have Tyler Warren at tight end, you are 99% starting him. And then on the Cardinal side of things, that's pretty much it. I'm not starting Josh Downs. I'm not starting Alec Pierce outside of like a deep league DFS dart throw. So for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, questionable. Yeah, he's that is very worrisome. Foot injury, which isn't great for a mobile quarterback. Looks like he missed Wednesday and Thursday, limited on Friday. If he plays, I think that's good. He's not necessarily been lighting it up, but the backup is Jacoby Brissett. And you know, this game could just get ugly if Kyler Murray's not there. You know, if they're losing, Michael Carter might not be as appealing, filling in for injured Trey Benson and James Conner. But Michael Carter is still interesting as a. Whoa, what is going on with this website here? Whoa, what the heck? Sorry, my computer was just tweaking. He's still in that, running back 2, high running back 3 range, but upside could be capped here for Michael Carter. Just if the game script doesn't go well and just the possibility that they could lose. The Colts are also a pretty good run defense, giving up the 25th most points to running backs, so not a lot. Marvin Harrison Jr., I've been saying this, he's not a must start anymore. I know he was hyped up as a rookie, but he's a guy who can make a play, can get in the end zone, but consistency is an issue. He is in that wide receiver 2 range, and if Kyler Murray's not there, Jacoby Brissett isn't necessarily the type of guy that's gonna, put up a ton of fantasy goodness for his receivers. So, if you have him, you're probably playing him. I'd probably play him over Zay Flowers either way. Zay Flowers is obviously with the backup no matter what. But it's, I'd probably lean Pittman on the other side of the ball over Marvin Harrison. Even Stephon Diggs at this point, I'd probably play over Marv. Is that crazy? So it's pretty much Michael Carter is playable. Marv is playable, but I'm not excited. And then Trey McBride, you're starting him. It hasn't kind of been what you're hoping for, but with where you drafted him and his talent and, all that, he's still someone that you are most likely starting here. So moving on, we've got the Chargers at the Dolphins. The Chargers are 3-2, traveling to Miami to play the Dolphins, who are 1-4. And the Chargers are just really, really beat up right now. They started the year looking really good. Justin Herbert, is he going to be the MVP? Yada, yada, yada. He's slowed down. The offensive line has suffered a ton of injuries. They just lost Omarion Hampton to injured reserve. He's going to be out for a while. Najee Harris has been out. So it's Hassan Haskins and Kimani Vidal at running back for the Chargers here, behind a kind of, icky offensive line situation right now. I'm not looking to start Haskins or Vidal out of the gates. If you picked them up, I know it's tempting to start them right away. If I had to start one, I would probably lean Haskins. But we don't know what the split's going to be, and the situation with the offensive line isn't necessarily the best. So I know Rico Dowdle just ran all over this Dolphins defense, and they're giving up the 6th most points per game to running backs, but I'm not chasing that matchup until I kind of know what the backfield split is going to be. Like, if you don't have anyone else to play, then okay, maybe you throw them in, but I would start even like a Tony Pollard, Michael Carter, David Montgomery, even Chase Brown, who's been kind of bad. I'd start those guys over Hassan Haskins. Just kind of give you an idea where Haskins is more of like a running back 3 dart throw at this point. Justin Herbert he's still a good start. He's been slowing down, but they're going to need him in this game. The Dolphins are giving up the 3rd most points to quarterbacks. So even behind that offensive line, he's got good weapons. So, sometimes he runs. So if he does run, with there being no running backs, that will help things, and then kind of looking at the wide receivers here, a big factor here is going to be the health of Quentin Johnston. So he is questionable, dealing with a hamstring issue. If he's out, that gives a boost to Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen. If he plays, he's been so good, it would be hard to sit him, but it would be a little more sketchy. Hamstring issues are always kind of iffy. I think I forgot to say at the beginning, but the Chargers are still 4.5 point road favorites. The over-under is 43.5, so it's not great. But it kind of just depends on your options. Like if you've been relying on Huge, you're probably starting him. But it's possible that you don't start him. It really just depends on your options, and there is risk with that hamstring injury. Keenan Allen, with or without Quentin Johnson active, I think he's a solid start. If Johnson is out, this will elevate McConkey and Keenan Allen even more. But Keenan Allen's been great. He's been a little bit touchdown dependent. You know, he hasn't had more than 68 yards in a game, but he also hasn't seen less than 7 targets in a game. So he's been really solid. Great PPR guy. Hasn't gotten in the end zone the last couple weeks. Touchdowns haven't historically been his thing, but he's still a solid wide receiver too, and even maybe better if Quentin Johnson doesn't play. And then same thing for Lab McConkey. He finally had a good game last week. I mean, I don't know. He was only 5 for 39. He caught a touchdown. So if Quentin Johnson doesn't play, I'm fine playing him. If Johnson is active, you can still start Lad, but I'm not excited to, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So all 3 of those receivers are in play. We just got to kind of see the health situation. Not looking to start, any tight ends, no Will Dissly, as much as I love the guy. So, and then on the other side, Miami Dolphins, you got Tua. I don't want to start Tua outside of a Tua quarterback league, but Devon Achane is he's going to be needed in this game. He's pretty much always a running back 1 each and every week, regardless of the matchup, just because of his passing game involvement. Chargers are giving up the 26th most points to running backs, so they're low, but you still start them. And with Tyreek Hill gone, he's going to be needed even more. It's pretty much Devon Achane at running back and then Jalen Waddle at wide receiver. With no Tyreek Hill, we saw Waddle really succeed for fantasy. It's probably going to be the case for the rest of the year. He saw a season high in targets with 9, caught 6 of them for 110 and a touchdown. So without Tyreek Hill, he's going to be needed more than ever. So he's a very, very, very solid wide receiver 2 start. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he finishes as a wide receiver 1. Even though the Chargers are giving up the 4th fewest points to receivers, it's still just a thing where it's like, I think they'll get him open, and then Darren Waller at tight end. Since he was ramping up to play, and we weren't really sure if he was actually gonna like ever see the field and be good, but he's been really good. Like he's a tight end 1 this week and moving forward. His first game back against the Jets, he was 3 for 27 and 2 touchdowns on 4 targets and only 28% of snaps, according to this Fantasy Pros game log. Sometimes I don't know if it's the most accurate, but he was very limited. He played like barely double-digit snaps, if I remember. And then last week, it looks like it jumped up to 58%. He was 5 for 78 and a touchdown on 5 targets. So a lot of that came early, if I remember. But he's definitely someone that you can put out there and be about as confident as you can with some of these kind of grosser tight end options. But yeah, I don't know, with the Quentin Johnson injury and with all with that injury and the offensive line for the Chargers could be closer than we think. So Chargers are 4.5 point favorites. Wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins kind of make it a game. This game I'm very excited for. We got the Dallas Cowboys traveling to face the Carolina Panthers. This game could be exciting. Cowboys are 2-2-1. Panthers are 2-3. This game is a 49.5 point over-under, which I believe is at least tied for the highest on the week. Well, no, that's Lions and Chiefs is 52.5. But other than that, it looks like... Wait, what? And then the Monday night games are both 49.5. Bills, Falcons, and then Bears, Commanders as of October 11th on the fantasy DraftKings betting lines or whatever you call it. But Dak Prescott has been lighting it up for the Cowboys. We'll start with the Cowboys side of the ball here. He's been just great. He was a my guy, and he's been dominant. So even though he doesn't have CeeDee Lamb, he's still in consideration. He's a quarterback one. It's possible they don't need him to air it out if, you know, the Panthers don't fulfill their side of things offensively. But with George Pickens, that's enough of a wide receiver one to get it done. And Pickens himself is a fantastic play. He's just been eating. Like, he's a stud. And I think you obviously are playing him. So, it's just interesting to see, like, what are they going to need to do on offense if the Panthers, you know, don't show up. And then Javonte Williams, at this point, he's a start each and every week. I don't care about the matchup. He's getting the usage. He looks good. This is, you know, it seems like he's super old and has been in the league forever, and he's washed, you know, because he had all those injuries and stuff. But he's only 25 years old, and he looks good on a good offense. So he's been great for fantasy, and you're going to keep rolling with him. And then same with Jake Ferguson, a guy that I think a lot of people forgot about. I considered trading for him in Dynasty, and I wish I did because the price went way up. He's a must-start tight end at this point. So you can make a case that he's the number one tight end to have in fantasy because he's just so hyper-targeted. He's catching touchdowns. He hit 2 last week, 1 the week before. He hasn't seen fewer than 6 targets in a game all season. His target total since week 1 in order 6, 12, 14, 7, 9. So it literally doesn't get better than that. So it's very easy. You go Dak, Javonte, Pickens, Ferguson, log out. And then for the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard is going to be out. So Rico Dowdle gets to start again. Start of the week, fire him up. McMillan, start of the week, fire him up. It is possible that they don't both succeed. I'm a little skeptical about that. It's kind of why I had 2 running back starts of the week, just because, you know, are the Panthers going to be able to supply both players with production? But I think the offense is going to be consolidated enough where I'm comfortable that both of them are at least going to be solid. So Tet, Chuba, fire him up. No Leggett, no Renfro. Not wanting to go Jatavian Sanders or Tremble or and any gross thing like that. So, and then Bryce Young, I'm not, you know, in a 2 quarterback league, you know, you can maybe get away with it. But just because, you know, you're playing Dallas. So he's in the quarterback 2 range. I'd probably rather play him over Trevor Lawrence. I'd rather play him over like Tua probably. So maybe he's someone you play in a 2 quarterback league. But we're going to go to a way, way, way grosser game now. We got the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Browns are 1-4. Steelers are 3-1. Dylan Gabriel is going to start for the Browns. They just traded Joe Flacco. Gabriel started last week. 37.5 point over under. Disgusting. Steelers are 5.5 point home favorites. On the Brown side of things, let's make this easy, okay? Quinshon Judkins is basically a must-start running back. I don't want to start any of the receivers for the Browns. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Jerry Jeudy, but he's like a wide receiver 4 at best right now. And then you can maybe take a shot on the tight ends, David Njoku and Harold Fannin. Njoku had a decent week last week. I benched him finally. I actually benched him for Waller. So Sunday morning, I was like, dang it. And then Waller played, and I was like, okay, he did slightly better. But Njoku was 6 for 67 and a touchdown on 9 targets against my Vikings last week. So he's talented. I was kind of shocked at how bad he's been and how uninvolved he's been, and Fannin kind of eating his targets. But, you know, maybe Gabriel has a thing for Njoku. So you can start Njoku if you don't have a good option. I'd go Waller over him, but, you know, he's kind of in that Mason Taylor range. I'd probably go with him over like Zach Ertz. He's probably got a little more upside, but incoming Zach Ertz 2 touchdown game now that I said that. And then Harold Fannin, I like less than Njoku, but you can start him as sort of like a mid tight end 2. And then for the Steelers, you know, you're not looking to start Aaron Rodgers. You know, the Browns defense is really solid. You don't want to play Rodgers really, but the real question marks here are like Jalen Warren and DK Metcalf. Jalen Warren was, you know, really solid for fantasy. Then he's kind of been injured, and he missed that game against the Vikings. Now then they had a bye week, so he's off the injury report. He should be good to go. The Browns' run defense is pretty darn tough. Like, I don't know if you know that, because it's the Browns and you might not consider that they could be good at something, but they're giving up the third fewest points to running backs on the ground. So I know Kenneth Gainwell had a big week, but if I had to pick one, now that Warren is back, I would go back to Warren. I'm interested to see what the split is with him, and also if the rookie Caleb Johnson is involved coming out of the bye week. I took him in the first round of a dynasty draft, so I'm hoping he is. But Warren is a solid running back too. He should be solid in this game, even in the tough matchup, just because he should see good volume and be involved as a pass catcher. And DK Metcalf, I benched him. I benched him against the Vikings before their bye week, and in the first quarter or first half or whatever, that looked like a huge mistake, and it was. He was 5 for 126 and a touchdown. He had that 80-yard bomb touchdown where he took a slant to the house, but he really didn't do much like as the game went along. He was super involved early, and they were winning by a ton, so maybe that's why they didn't need him. But I know they're not throwing a ton, but even in terms of his target share, I thought he would get more of that amount. You know what I mean? I thought he would be in the passes that they do throw, that he would get more of them. So he's about 20%. And he's DK Metcalf, so he can always take a pass and bring it to the house like he did against the Vikings. Especially because he was on my bench, but he's more of a wide receiver too at this point. Like, I'd probably lean him over Marv, especially if Kyler Murray sits, but him and Michael Pittman is an interesting decision because Pittman's probably safer. Metcalf probably has more upside, so that's kind of where he's at. I'd probably go Stephon Diggs over Metcalf with how good he's been playing. So that's a very gross game. Let's move on past that. Let's go to the Patriots and the Saints. Speaking of Stephon Diggs, so Patriots are 3-2. Saints are 1-4. This game's in New Orleans. Patriots just beat the Bills in that primetime game. And yeah, they're looking like a team that's on the rise. So Drake May, he didn't have a big game for fantasy against the Bills, but he passes the eye test and he played well. And he's got the mobility where he's going to be a difference maker for fantasy. So before that game, he had been really great for fantasy. I'm totally excited to go back to him in this game as a mid quarterback one. Him versus Justin Herbert is a tough decision. Same with Baker. I'd probably lean Drake May over Baker just because of the injuries to the Bucs receiving core. But the Patriots are 3.5-point road favorites, 45.5-point over under, and the Saints play teams tough, so this game could be a close one. Ramondre Stevenson, he's still the running back to own there. He's not even a running back 2, probably more of a running back 3, but if you're going to play someone, you'd probably lean him just because he's getting most of the work. Travion Henderson, the rookie, is still not getting as involved as we want. You can play him kind of in the same running back 3 range if you want to take that risk, but not a guy that I'm putting in lineups if I can help it. And then Stephon Diggs, let's go, baby. He's in that wide receiver 2 category now. He's been awesome. Slow start to the season coming off the ACL injury, but he's been great. Last 2 weeks, last week he was 10 for 146 on 12 targets. The week before, 6 for 101 on 7 targets. So over 100 yards back-to-back weeks. Fire him up as a wide receiver 2. And then Hunter Henry is someone you can put out there as a, he's in the mid tight end 1 conversation just because he was looking like the team's wide receiver 1, but since Diggs has emerged, obviously that role has kind of flipped towards Stephon Diggs, but Henry's always a candidate to, catch a touchdown in the red zone. So he's still playable. But yeah, the only guy I'm really excited to play is Drake May and Stephon Diggs. And then, one of these running backs is probably going to score. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that was stupid to say. Guarantee it. No, I'm kidding. And then for the Saints, Alvin Kamara, he's questionable. So Kendre Miller is getting more and more involved. Kamara is getting older. The team is 1-4. He's questionable to play. Ankle injury. Suffered it during practice. I'm not excited to play him regardless. If he's active, you can play him as a running back too, but with Kendre Miller being more and more involved, it's a bit sketchy. He's not a must start. He's absolutely not a must start. And the Patriots are giving up the 5th fewest points to running back. So if Kamara is out, that kind of elevates Kendre Miller because, the touches will be consolidated and Miller is talented enough where I think if he gets the volume, he'll be solid for fantasy. So he would enter that kind of, streaming running back conversation. And then Chris Olave, he's got a decent floor just because he's getting so many targets. This offense moves so fast. He's in that low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 range, but the upside just isn't there. He's got 1 touchdown on the season. The yardage hasn't been above. He's been in the 50s in 4 out of 5 weeks. The week where he was lower, he had 20 yards, but he did catch a touchdown. So he's playable, but not like again, not a must start. The definition of not a must start. Whoa. I don't know what my computer just did there. Okay, we're good. Again, my computer is tweaking. Sorry. And let's see. Christian Gonzalez is questionable, I'm reading. So I believe he played against the Bills and he looked pretty good from what I saw. So cornerback for the Patriots. So that's going to be a big thing too. If he's active and shadowing, Chris Olave, that's going to make life harder for him. But Olave's playable, not exciting. Speaking of not exciting, Tennessee Titans at the Raiders. Gross, but it's football. So we're going to talk about it. Both teams are 1-4. 41.5 point over under. It's better than the Steelers and Browns. Raiders are 4.5 point home favorites. Geno Smith has been playing really bad. It's been affecting Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers has been out. He's going to be out again at tight end, superstar, which is probably good. You want him to be healthy, but it hasn't translated to good things for Jacoby Myers just because Geno hasn't been able to really get him the ball. So I would have thought Jacoby Myers would be like one of my favorite guys to play each and every week if you told me Brock Bowers was out, just because of he's going to have a safe floor, he's going to see a ton of targets. But no, he's been 30 and 32 yards each of the last couple of weeks. So you can still play him as a wide receiver 3. Him versus Zay Flowers or Olave, who we talked about, is kind of interesting, but it's been bad. So don't have to start him, but I wouldn't completely turn away just because he's been bad, so he's going to be bad again. No, that's not necessarily true. But, Geno was good in Seattle, so I don't know what's going on with him. He's turned the ball over a ton, but the main guy on the Raiders I'm excited to play is Ashton Genty against this Tennessee Titans defense, giving up the 3rd most points to running backs. Yeah, Genty should eat here. He's a running back 1. Had that big game against the Bears 2 weeks ago. Last week slowed down a little bit, but saw 7 targets, turned into 5 for 42 through the air, 14 for 67 on the ground. So he's a running back 1. And then Michael Mayer is going to start for the Raiders at tight end. I don't really want to start him, but maybe a DFS start throw type of thing. And then for the Titans, the only guy I really am looking to start would be Tony Pollard, and that would just be as a floor play. He's been, he's been solid. He's probably a good bet to get you about 10 points for fantasy. Maybe he scores, maybe he doesn't, but Tajay Spears is back, and that's gonna affect his workload a little bit. But even last week he was 14 for 67 and a touchdown, 3 for 11 through the air. Wouldn't be surprised if he puts up a similar stat line. You're kind of hoping he gets in the end zone. But yeah, both of these quarterbacks have been not good. Geno Smith and Cam Ward. Calvin really finally had a good game for fantasy last week against the Cardinals. I'm not chasing it by starting him. He was 5 for 131 on 10 targets. You love the 10 targets. Played 66% of snaps. If he has another good game here, maybe it's something where it's okay, maybe we have something here. But he's more of a wide receiver 3. Him versus Jacoby Myers, Zay Flowers. I guess once you're in that range, it's okay, maybe you consider him, but that's about where he's at. And then, yeah, this game is it's gonna be gross. It's gonna be gross, and no Brock Bowers makes it even grosser. Let's get away from that game. Let's move on to a more exciting game here. We got the San Francisco 49ers at 4-1 on the road against the Tampa Bay Bucks at 4-1. This game should be exciting here. 47.5 point over under. The Buccaneers are 3.5 point home favorites. Now, injuries. Obviously, the 49ers have been dealing with tons of injuries all year. Brock Purdy at quarterback is out. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver, is out. Mac Jones is expected to start again at quarterback. Jawan Jennings at wide receiver is questionable. Maybe a game time decision, according to ESPN. And then on the Buccaneers side of things, I'm just focusing on the skill position players here. Wide receiver Mike Evans out. Wide receiver Chris Godwin out. Bucky Irving out again. So Rachaad White is going to get the start. Jalen McMillan still out. He's been on injured reserve. So it's interesting. I'm still fine playing Baker just because I feel like he always finds a way. It does hurt his upside, obviously, but if this game hits the over, especially a 47.5, I think he'll be fine. And he's been still running the ball a fair amount, so he's still in that quarterback one range. Not as much upside with the injuries, but Rachaad White is going to get the start again at running back. So, there was some talk maybe Sean Tucker would also be involved. He wasn't. It was really the Rachaad White show. So I'm very happy to play Rachaad White again as a really solid running back 2, like high-end running back 2. And he's going to catch passes, especially with all these wide receiver injuries. So with no Evans or Godwin, that really adds to how much you like Emeka Egbuka, as Gronk says. Yeah, he's a stud. He is a stud at this point. You're starting him pretty much no matter what. You can make the case like, oh, other guys aren't there, so he's going to get more coverage, yada, yada, yada. Don't care. He's a must-start receiver at this point. Like, he's been unbelievable. Where does he rank on the season? I mean, let me pull this up. In half PPR, he's a wide receiver 3 on the season, so you start him. And then Cade Otton is interesting at tight end. Just with all the injuries, he is someone that you can start. You can stream him. Don't have to. Last week he was 4 for 81 on 5 targets. So again, if you're desperate, because he's going to be, Sterling Shepard is probably the wide receiver 2 there. I mean, he's a deep play, but I'm not looking to start him outside of deep leagues or DFS. And then on the 49er side of things, if Mac Jones does start, he's listed as questionable, I'm seeing, but he is expected to start. So hopefully he starts. If he doesn't, Adrian Martinez looks like is going to get the start, and that's going to really hurt things. But Christian McCaffrey is someone you start each and every week, no matter what. I think we know that. No Ricky Pearsall again, which is very disappointing. Jawan Jennings is questionable. He's going to be a game time decision. Hey man, like, if you don't have good options, you can put him in there. Okay. You can. There is the chance that even if he plays, he's limited or he leaves early with an injury. So if he plays and is fine, he could have a great week, but there is risk there. And then Jake Tonjes, obviously, with, I didn't even mention him in the injuries because he's been on IR, but George Kittle still on IR, not coming back. Jake Tonjes he's been playable. I mean, for fantasy, he's a great streaming option. Still in that tight end 2 kind of range, but last week, 7 for 41 and a touchdown on 11 targets. The week before that, 3 for 58 and a touchdown on 5 targets. So the last 2 weeks, he's been really solid, filling in for George Kittle. So again, not a must start, but you can play him. Then that should be an exciting game. This game should not be exciting though. The Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Lambeau. Yeah. It's projected to be kind of a slaughter. Packers are 14.5 point home favorites. They're expected to win by 14.5 points. That's insane. 44.5 point over under. Obviously, most of those points are projected to be scored by the Packers. So Josh Jacobs is a great, and I mean, he's always a great start, but this week he's even better. The Bengals are giving up the most points to running backs on the season. So wouldn't be surprised at all if he finishes super high. Um, Jordan Love is a great start at quarterback as well. He's a quarterback one start in this matchup against a bad Bengals defense. It's possible that they don't need him to throw the ball a lot, so that does kind of worry me a little bit. But he's still someone that I think is a good bet to at least throw a couple touchdowns. The problem is, who is he going to throw to? I made Tucker Kraft a start of the week at tight end. You have the positional scarcity of the tight end position. Great matchup for tight ends. They're giving up the most points to tight ends, and he's one of the few tight ends that has that ability to like break off big plays and win you weeks. So Tucker Kraft is my favorite pass catcher. After that, you'd probably want to go. I would probably say Romeo Doubs. I know he had that big 3 touchdown game against the Cowboys before the bye week. I don't think that's going to be the norm outside of the 3 touchdowns. He was 6 for 58 on 8 targets, though. So, Matthew Golden is someone that is also interesting. He had an okay game against Dallas, 5 for 58 on 6 targets. I think they almost had a longer pass too in there as well. So Dontavian Wicks might get involved. So it really is hard to predict. I would go Dobbs, then Golden, then Wicks in terms of wide receivers. But someone is probably going to do well for fantasy. So, and I forgot to say, but the Bengals are 2-3. How are they 2-3 even? Wow. And the Packers are 2-1-1. So the Packers should kind of dominate here. On the Bengals side of things, Joe Flacco just got traded to the Bengals. He's going to start. You can start Chase Brown. It's been bad. It's probably going to be bad, but he's still in that running back 3 range. And he was my guy, so that injury to Burrow hurts a lot, and he was already inefficient before that, and I don't know, man. It's gross. Jamar Chase, questionable illness, added on Friday, so monitor that, but it says he should play. If he plays, I would still put him in the lineup. He's still Jamar Chase. Last week he had a good game, 6 for 110 and 2. He's had 2 great games of over 20 points, and then 3 absolute stinkers. But you put him in there, and then T. Higgins, I'm totally fine not starting him, just because he's been pretty bad. I mean, he's been pretty bad for fantasy here. So he's in the wide receiver 3 range, but not needed to be started. So Bengals are gross. Let's move on. Got the Lions at the Chiefs. Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs. Lions are 4-1, and the Chiefs are 2-3. Just lost to the Jacksonville Jags. They don't look the best, but this game has the highest over-under of the week from what I saw on DraftKings here. It's 52.5 points. Chiefs are 2.5 point home favorites. And this game should be awesome. I want pieces of it. When you have a game with that high of an over-under, you want pieces of that game. So Mahomes is a great start. He's been actually good for fantasy this season. He's been needing to throw the ball. He's been even running quite a bit. So he's a great start. At running back, you got Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. They've been, weird, not really exciting for fantasy. They're both in that running back 3 range, and you kind of hope that they fall in the end zone for a touchdown. Kareem Hunt had 2 touchdowns last week, 7 for 49 and 2 touchdowns. Pacheco also had 7 carries and turned into 36 yards, 3 for 20 through the air. So it's gross. It really is gross. They're touchdown dependent dart throws if you're desperate. But Lions are giving up the 6th fewest points to running back. So matchup's tough. I'm guessing they're going to succeed more through the air. Xavier Worthy at wide receiver. He should be good to go. I remember hearing he was like dealing with some sort of injury, but I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, he's off the injury report, so he's good to go. He's exciting with this high over under. He's borderline wide receiver 1, honestly. So with his upside. So I don't really want to start Hollywood Brown at at all. He's had his moments, so he always could make a play, but I'm not really looking to start him or Juju or Tyquan Thornton or anything like that. It's pretty much Xavier Worthy and log out at the wide receiver room, and then a tight end. Travis Kelce's in the tight end 1 range there. Last week he was 7 for 61 and a touchdown. He's not the Kelce of old, but he still gives you good games from time to time. And with this high over under, he's someone that I'm very happy to play. And then on the Lions side of things, I mentioned him earlier, but Jared Goff is a good start. He's always kind of iffy just because you don't know if they're gonna, throw the ball or run the ball into the end zone when they're scoring. But in this high over under game, with his upside, he's worth a start as like a high quarterback 2 with upside. Jahmyr Gibbs, you're starting at running back. David Montgomery, you can start him. The Chiefs are kind of middle of the pack against running backs. They haven't been as stingy as they have been in years past. They kind of just shut down Travis Etienne a little bit last week, but Montgomery is, he's a borderline running back 2. You just kind of hope he scores. Last week against the Bengals, I loved him because of the matchup. This matchup is a little bit tougher, but you love the game environment, and I don't love it as much as against the Bengals, where you expect them to be winning and like pounding the rock, a lot of goal line scoring opportunities. Whereas this game, it might be more of a Gibbs and a passing game situation. But Montgomery's good enough where we'll see, and he just needs 1 goal line carry to make his week. Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver, you start him. Sam Laporta at tight end, you can definitely start him. Last week against the Bengals, he had his first good game of this, or his best game of the season, 5 for 92 and a touchdown on 6 targets. You can go right back to him as a mid tight end 1, especially with his high upside. And then Jamison Williams is the only other real decision there. He's been pretty disappointing for fantasy. He's still got upside. I'm still willing to play him in this game with his high over under, because if it hits the over, he could be a part of that big scoring output. But he's really had 1 game for fantasy where you've been happy, and he was 2 for 108 and a touchdown in that game. So he caught the long bomb. So not a must start, but he's wide receiver 3 with upside. Like if you want to play him over like Olave for upside, I'm cool with that, but Olave is probably safer. Zay Flowers with the quarterback situation and his own injury, that's a tough decision. So that's kind of the range he's in. And then moving on to the Monday night games, double header. Okay, so make sure you got your lineups ready. Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons. Bills are 4-1. The Falcons are 2-2. On the Bills side of things, I think it's pretty simple. So Josh Allen, you start at quarterback. James Cook, you start at running back, even though last week wasn't great. You still start him as a must-start running back. And then at wide receiver, I don't want to start any of these guys. Okay, I don't want to. Now, you absolutely can. You have the right to do that. But the Falcons are giving up the fewest points to running backs, by the way, for what it's worth. So I'm still starting James Cook, but that's interesting. Falcons are also giving up the 6th fewest points per game to wide receivers. Interesting. Keon Coleman got in the end zone, but he's always a threat to do that, but not, he's a wide receiver 3 at best. And then Khalil Shakir, also kind of a wide receiver 3, supposedly kind of a safer floor, but I'm not excited to start any of them, but one of them might be good for fantasy. And then Dalton Kincaid, he's been really good for fantasy. He finds a way to get it done most weeks. He's questionable, limited at practice on Friday, so says he's on track to play on Monday, but monitor the news if it's looking like he might truly be questionable. This is a Monday night game, so make sure you have a pivot option on Monday night, or make sure you play someone on Sunday. A pivot option on the same team would be Dawson Knox if you have Kyle Pitts on the other side of the field. Zach Ertz in the Commanders game that starts an hour later. Maybe Cole Kmet or Colson Loveland for the Bears in that same game. So, and then for the Falcons, obviously, you're not starting Michael Penix, but Bijan Robinson is a start each and every week. He's been great for fantasy, so he's another guy that would be in that, like, if you're redrafting, would he go like first overall? He'd probably be in the conversation. So he's great. Drake London, fire him up. He's had a weird year, but overall, I think he's a little bit underrated, and he's a must start at this point. Last time we saw him in week 4, he went 8 for 110 and a touchdown against Washington. So he got back on track. So hopefully he keeps that going. And then Kyle Pitts at tight end, he is definitely startable. He's been actually pretty solid for fantasy. So he's in that, low tight end 1 range. If you don't have like a locked in option, I'm very happy to play him. And then moving on to the final matchup, we got the Chicago Bears. Wait, did I say what the line was for this? Sorry. 49.5 point over under for both of these Monday night games. And then the Bills are 4.5 point road favorites. I forgot to say that. But moving on to the Bears at the Washington Commanders. Commanders are 3-2. The Bears are 2-2. And the Commanders are 4.5 point home favorites. I like Jacory, Croskey-Merritt at running back for the Commanders. Like I said, it's still a bit of a committee with Rodriguez and McNichols, but it seems like Jacory or like Bill is the guy. And then Chris Rodriguez is questionable. He missed practice Friday, so there's a chance he misses Monday. So we'll see. If that's the case, that just solidifies the volume for Bill even more. But Jayden Daniels, he's back. You should be starting him. Not a huge week in his return. Obviously he's coming back from the injury. He might be a little bit limited mobility wise, but he's someone that you are most likely playing. Obviously, you should be playing. And then at receiver here, so Debo is questionable. He's been awesome. If he's active, you play him. He practiced Friday. It looks like he's fine. So he's a must start at this point. Honestly, he's a wide receiver 1. And especially if Terry McLaurin misses again, and he missed practice Friday, it's looking like there's a good chance he misses this game. He hasn't played since week 3, Terry McLaurin, that is. So if McLaurin is active, I don't necessarily want to put him back in the lineup. He's not a must start. Whether he plays or not, I love Debo this week. And then Zach Ertz at tight end. I know he's been really disappointing for fantasy. Not a must start at all, but he's still in the streaming conversation as a tight end too. Last week, no catches, but I think that might have just been a blip. And especially if McLaurin is out, it's possible that he's needed, especially if this game is high scoring. So, and then on the Bears side of things, Caleb Williams, you can start him. You can definitely start Caleb Williams. Again, especially if this game hits the over. Caleb Williams is one of those guys that I'm always kind of sketchy. It's always sketchy starting him because you don't know what you're going to get, but he's got upside if you don't have a locked in quarterback option. Like him versus Jordan Love is a little interesting. Like Love probably doesn't have as much upside just because they're probably going to be able to run the ball out. Whereas Caleb Williams might get in a shootout, but Jordan Love is probably a safer bet. DeAndre Swift at running back, it's not, it ain't sexy, but he's a running back too. And then at receiver, DJ Moore has been very, very disappointing. I don't really want to start him. I have him in a league where I have to start him, but he's more of a wide receiver 3 at this point. But Roma Dunze is the receiver that you really want there. And he's been awesome. He's basically a must start at this point. He's in the wide receiver 1 range. He's been great pretty much every week for fantasy. He scored every game, and he's the wide receiver 1 there now. So, and then I'm not looking to start Cole Kmet or Colson Loveland at tight end outside of maybe pivoting if you are holding out hope for Kincaid. So monitor the news with him. But Colson Loveland is also questionable right now. So with a hip injury, says he should be good. So all right, I think those are all the games. I think we covered all of those. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it as always. If it sounds like I'm hurrying, it's because I got a new camera and I don't have a dummy battery yet. It's coming tomorrow. So I have 8% left on my camera. So I wanted to get through that really quick. And we also got through the podcast a little quicker than normal in general. So I kind of wanted to cut that down. So we got through all the games, starts of the week, Thursday Night Football recap, all of it. Make sure you guys are subscribed or following the podcast wherever you are enjoying. Comment down below how much you're going to beat your opponent or whatever, and start a little chat in the comments, like, start set decisions, all that. And thank you guys. Good luck to everyone except your opponents in week 6. I will see you in the next one. Peace.